Let me give you an example. Say you're dealing with someone at work who's passive-aggressive, always undermining you subtly. Now, sure, you can stew over it. You can replay every comment in your mind. You can wait for them to change or for someone else to notice and fix it. Or you can decide how you want to handle it. You can document, address it directly, adjust your boundaries, protect your peace. That's what focusing on what you can control looks like in real time. It's active, it's deliberate, it's grounded in your power, not theirs. And here's the thing, when you start living this way, people notice. Not because you're controlling others, but because you're in control of yourself. You become the calmest person in the room. You stop reacting to every wave because you're anchored. People feel that. It's magnetic because it's rare. Now, does that mean you'll never be thrown off? No. You're human. Things will still catch you off guard. But emotional discipline, what we just talked about, paired with focused control, what we're talking about now, is how you return to center, faster, stronger, clearer. You'll still feel the weather, but it won't decide your direction. And that's the whole point. Control isn't about creating a life free of problems. It's about building a mindset that can handle problems. It's about trusting yourself, not because you think nothing will go wrong, but because you know who you'll be when it does. So the next time you feel that pull to overthink, to obsess, to fix everything and everyone, pause. Ask yourself, is this mine to control? If it is, act with clarity. If it's not, let it go without guilt. Let me tell you something most people get completely wrong. Silence is not weakness. We live in a world that rewards noise. We are constantly told to speak up, clap back, have the last word. We equate silence with submission, with passivity, with losing. But let's flip that idea on its head. Because the truth is, silence, when chosen deliberately, is one of the most powerful tools you'll ever learn to use. See, silence isn't about saying nothing. It's about saying something later, something smarter, or sometimes saying nothing ever, because not everything deserves your voice. There's a difference between silence out of fear and silence out of strategy. The first is avoidance. The second is strength. Think about the last time someone pushed your buttons, whether online, in a meeting, or at the dinner table. You felt that urge rise up, didn't you? That tightening in the chest, the instant mental draft of a comeback. You wanted to defend, explain, correct. That's the ego flaring. It wants to prove something. But silence? Silence says, I don't owe you my energy just because you're demanding it. That is power. Let's go deeper. Psychologically reactive communication is driven by the limbic system. The emotional center of the brain. It wants resolution right now. It wants relief. But that kind of instant reaction usually leads to regret. Silence, on the other hand, engages the executive functions of the prefrontal cortex. That's where emotional regulation lives. That's where long-term strategy is born. When you choose silence in a moment of emotional intensity, you're doing something rare. You're overriding the need for validation in the moment in favor of stability in the long run. You're saying, I am not controlled by you. I'm in control of me. There's a quote I think about often. Don't raise your voice, improve your argument. And sometimes improving your argument means not making one at all, especially when the conversation isn't about truth but ego. You've seen this, two people arguing, not to understand but to win, to be louder, sharper, more seen. But what if the win is not engaging at all? There's a certain calm that comes from knowing who you are, from not needing to prove it at every turn. And that calm is intimidating. Silence makes people uncomfortable because it forces them to sit with themselves. And if they were looking to provoke you, your stillness disarms them. It takes away the one thing they were hoping to control, your reaction. Philosophers and spiritual leaders across cultures have always understood this. In Taoism, they talk about Wu Wei, the concept of effortless action, of knowing when not to act. In Christianity, There's the principle of turning the other cheek, not as surrender, but as discipline. In Buddhism, mindfulness teaches us that not every thought is worth voicing. Silence is universal in its power because it transcends the need to dominate. It speaks a language only the secure can understand. Now, I'm not telling you to stay silent in the face of injustice or to suppress your truth. That's not strength. That's fear wearing a mask. What I'm saying is choose your voice the way a master chooses their tools. Intentionally, purposefully. Not every situation deserves a reply. Not every insult deserves a response. Not every invitation to chaos needs an RSVP. When you speak from a place of calm rather than impulse, your words carry weight. People feel the difference. There's gravity in restraint. The person who doesn't need to speak every time they're provoked is the person you watch closely when they do speak. Because when they speak, it matters. Silence also gives you space. It's a filter. When you resist the urge to respond instantly, you allow your thoughts to settle, you gain clarity. You see what's really being said, not just what your emotions tell you is being said. And then take solace in the silence of the moment. You see what's really being said, not just what your emotions tell you is being said. They tell you the truth of your situation. You see what's really being said. That moment of stillness becomes your edge. It's where you regain your footing, your insight, your authority. In conflict, silence is often your best move. Not as a weapon, but as a pause, a reset. It can de-escalate a fight, redirect a conversation, or simply protect your peace. And sometimes, silence is the boundary, the refusal to participate in dysfunction. You don't need to scream that you're done, you just stop responding. That in itself becomes a message. And yes, silence requires confidence. It requires patience. It requires the inner stability to be misunderstood, mischaracterized, even judged, and still choose not to react. That's hard. But the people who master this, who learn to hold their center even while the world spins, they're the ones who end up steering the ship. You don't have to show up to every argument you're invited to. You don't have to correct every false narrative. You don't have to react just because someone else wants a show. Your peace is not public property. And when you understand that, you stop performing and start leading. Silence is not retreat. It is presence. It's the conscious decision to protect your energy, to own your power, to respond with intention instead of noise. So the next time someone comes at you sideways or life throws chaos your way, try this. Say nothing just for a moment. Sit with the discomfort. Breathe. Observe. Let the need to prove something pass. Then, if you choose to speak, let it come from a place that's calm, clear, and rooted. And if you choose not to speak at all, that's a choice too. A powerful one. That's a hard-earned discipline. Because our instincts often scream for defense, for justification, but silence teaches you to sit with that discomfort, to let your actions do the talking over time. To trust that truth doesn't need constant PR. It just needs consistency. In many ways, silence is the language of those who have outgrown the need for performance. When you know what you're about, when you've focused inward and built something real, you don't have to prove anything. Your energy becomes your filter, your presence becomes your response, and your silence becomes your power. So the next time you feel that itch to respond, to defend, to explain, pause. Ask yourself, is this coming from strength or from insecurity? Am I trying to communicate or am I just trying to be heard? And if it's the latter, maybe silence is the better choice, because the loudest person in the room is rarely the most grounded. And the strongest person doesn't always raise their voice. Sometimes they just raise their standards and let their silence fill the rest. We live in a culture obsessed with the announcement. Everyone's broadcasting what they're about to do, what they're working on, what they're thinking about working on. There's this impulse to make sure everyone knows you're growing, planning, improving. But here's the thing, when your energy shifts from actually doing the work to constantly declaring it, you're already off course. True progress doesn't need a spotlight, it creates its own. And when you're truly focused, when you're quiet, intentional, grounded, the results become impossible to ignore. You don't have to convince anyone, you just have to continue. That's the difference between movement and momentum. There's a subtle trap in this need to narrate every step. Psychologically, it gives us a premature sense of accomplishment. You talk about what you plan to do, and your brain gets a small dopamine hit, as if you've already done it. And so, ironically, the more you speak about your goals, the less urgency you may feel to actually reach them. Silence, in contrast, keeps you close to the work. It removes the illusion and leaves you with the reality. Let your progress speak. That phrase isn't just about optics, it's about integrity. It means aligning your actions with your values so consistently that you don't have to explain who you are. People can feel it. They may not know what you're doing, but they'll notice you've changed. Your energy sharpens, your discipline tightens, your presence quiets but deepens. That's not coincidence, that's evolution. And evolution doesn't announce itself. It happens in the background, slowly, deliberately, almost imperceptibly, until one day the results are undeniable. The same way you don't hear a tree grow, you don't need to hear a person evolve, but you will see it. The habits shift, the choices change, the boundaries strengthen. You can't fake that, and you don't need to talk about it for it to be real. That's where real respect is built, not in the promises, but in the patterns. People eventually stop listening to what you say and start watching how you move. That's human nature. You can say all the right things, read all the right books, quote all the right philosophies, but if your actions don't reflect it, none of it sticks. But when your behavior is aligned, when your energy is consistent, you don't need a script, you just live it. Now, this doesn't mean you can't ever share your progress or celebrate wins. That's human. That's healthy. But the motive matters. If you're sharing from a place of fulfillment, it feels different than if you're sharing from a place of needing validation. One is rooted, the other is restless. And the people who get it, the ones who are doing the deep internal work, they can tell the difference. Because they're doing it too. They're not distracted by noise. They're not looking for the loudest person in the room. They're tuned into energy, consistency, presence. That's what speaks to them. That's what speaks to you when you're focused. Progress, real progress, is often unglamorous. It's early mornings, quiet evenings, saying no when it would be easier to say yes. It's doing the small things over and over again when no one's watching. And that's the piece most people skip. They want the applause before the process. But the ones who stay committed when it's inconvenient, those are the ones who rise. And the beauty of letting your progress speak is that it builds a confidence you don't have to perform. You're not faking it till you make it, you're becoming it, day by day. And that kind of growth doesn't just change how others see you, it changes how you see yourself. It rewires your identity. You go from "I hope I can" to "I know I will." Not because you said it once in a caption, but because you've lived it repeatedly in silence. You've built trust with yourself. And that kind of trust, that's priceless. That's rare. That's why the most powerful people you'll meet are often the least performative. They don't need to declare they're powerful. You feel it. It's in how they carry themselves. It's in how they respond or don't respond. It's in how they operate with calm in a world obsessed with chaos. You'll find that the more you focus on progress over performance, the quieter your life becomes, and the more peaceful it gets. because you're no longer chasing approval. You're not performing for an audience that changes its opinion every 5 minutes. You're just building. And you're doing it for the right reasons. When you show up every day for yourself, not for attention, not for applause, but because your vision demands it, there's a dignity in that, a strength. It doesn't matter if anyone sees it now. What matters is that you keep going. Because here's the truth. Real success is quiet at first. It happens behind the scenes. And then all at once it shows up unmistakably. Not in what you said you'd do, but in what you've done. Not in who you claim to be, but in who you've become. So keep moving in silence. Stay grounded. Stay focused.